This episode of Fight Stories is brought to you by Absolute Nature CBD. For the smoothest, 100% natural CBD and CBD oil products, go to AbsoluteNatureCBD.com. Plug in the promo code Goon Squad. Get yourself a 20% discount. But wait. Is that Santa I hear on the roof? Bringing a special Christmas giveaway brought to you by Fight Stories and the good people at Absolute Nature CBD. Why, I think it is. Over the next 2 weeks, Fight Stories listeners, if you share an episode of this season's Fight Stories on Facebook or retweet it on Twitter and tag both AbsoluteNatureCBD.com and us, the Fight Stories boys, John Moses and Tyler Morrison, and include the hashtag Fight Stories Christmas giveaway. That will enter you for a chance to win one of the Absolute Nature CBD products, either the 1,000-milligram bottle of oil, 500-milligram canister of the Salve, that's the ointment you rub all over your dick and balls, or their new product, the softgel caps. So, you retweet it, it gives you a chance to win one of those three products. However, the person who retweets and or Facebook shares the most over the next 2 weeks will win all three of those things. The CBD Super Pack, brought to you by Absolute Nature. You will win the 1,000-milligram bottle, the 500-milligram Salve, and the soft gel caps. Got to be like a $250 value. All you got to do is share what you love. Make sure you include the hashtag Fight Stories Christmas giveaway. Is that what I said the first time? Well, that's what it is now. Fight Stories Christmas giveaway. And tag the Sunshine Boys and the good people at Absolute Nature CBD. Here's the episode.
Hey everyone, you're listening to another episode of Fight Stories. This is Tyler Morrison. I'm here with John Moses.
The Sunshine Boys.
And we have a great guest lined up for you today. We are going to be talking with former NHL heavyweight fighter and former NHL referee. He has a new book out called You Wanna Go. You can get that at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and on his website, youwannago.com. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we have Mr. Paul Stewart. How are you today, Paul?
Well, I'm glad that marijuana is legal. I figured you guys out already.
That's the old referee copping you, eh?
That's it. Well, actually, now that the government's back, I'm all excited that Nancy Pelosi has a job again, and Donald's going to build his wall. And they couldn't build one across Canada because they'd have to put a moat across Quebec, and of course those guys can swim, so it doesn't matter.
Where are you going to get your good beef?
There you go.
Paul, thanks
but
for...
It's good to be with you and talking hockey as we head into Beanpot Week here in Boston. And the first woman to ever referee a men's beanpot will take the ice on Monday night. Boston College is playing Harvard. And Katie Gay, who worked in the Olympics last year, will be refereeing. She also won the Red Bull competition, will be competing in the finals at Fenway Park when that happens. That's that downhill skating extravaganza. And probably one of the few people of the female gender that I think could potentially break the glass ceiling with the NHL, which means no home life or not here long.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. We were actually just down in Boston, and that's where you're from originally, right?
I am.
Paul, let me ask you.
Dorchester, right around where the Wahlbergs live.
Oh, okay.
All of them had police records, so they're welcome in Dorchester.
Paul, we're going to jump around here, but this is just a quick American question. Did you ever take it easier on the American players because you were like, these Canadians are running ramshot? Like Pat LaFontaine gave somebody a little stick and you let that one go for the country?
No, because, the interesting thing is that I played for two Canadian teams, Edmonton and Quebec.
Uh-huh.
I went through customs once in Quebec, and the customs officer was there, and he had the clipboard, and he goes, Tardif, Lacroix, Lapierre, Dion, Stewart. Stewart, you're a Nordique? I said, oh, yeah. He said, I thought all the Nordiques were French Canadian. I said, not the tough ones.
That's funny. We had Darren Kimball on, and I think he might have felt the same way. He's the the non-French guy.
He was a pretty rugged guy. I remember him.
Yeah.
He was a rugged guy and a good kid, too. So
Yeah.
we never had too much problem. No, you don't differentiate between the countries, because at one point in time when I was refereeing in the National Hockey League, of the 6 Canadian teams, there were 0 teams that had Canadian captains. They were all European.
Interesting.
Oh. That must have been the Matt Sundin era.
Well, it was Matt Sundin, Saku Koivu, and
Alfredson?
Alfredson, and down the road out in Calgary and Edmonton. So, yeah, it doesn't matter. When you drop a puck and you put a sweater on and you go out, skate, all of that is aside. What really counts is, are you playing for yourself and your team, and it's really chasing the puck and being a kid again that really counts. And I think that all that nationality stuff is a bunch of bunk anyway. My grandmother was born in Halifax, Nova Scotia. There are more Canadians in Boston than any place else, and if they're not here, they're in Miami.
Yeah, well, upstate New York is pretty ripe with them too, as a matter of fact.
And so playing in Quebec, then what was it like with the language barrier, having to be an American or an English speaking guy playing for Quebec?
You sound like René Lévesque, and it's interesting because one night when I was playing in Quebec and I was out with Jamie Hislop, and who was a nice kid from Sarnia that had a good career, played at UNH and went on and played in the National League, played in the WHA with me, and Reggie Thomas was another fellow from Western Ontario. We were in a restaurant called Old Vieux Canon, which is the old cannons inside of the old city. And René Lévesque, who was the separatist, he was the he was the, what would you call it, the prime minister or the
he was
of Quebec,
yeah, like a governor, or not governor. I forget.
Yeah, so he was the head.
A prick is what we call it.
He's an
MP.
MP.
Of the government.
Right.
An MP.
So he called us over and asked us if we would have a drink with him, and we sat there, and it was interesting because he looked at me and he said, "Now, as an Englishman, do you have a problem here in Quebec with with the French and how you're treated?" I said, "Well, I'm not English. I'm American." He said, "Well, I mean, it's the same thing." I said, "No, well, first of all, I try to speak French when I can. And second of all," I said, "I have somebody that does all the talking for me." And he said, "Oh, you have an interpreter?" I said, "No, I have George Washington. And if you have enough of them, everybody listens."
Perfect.
You turn that frown upside down.
That's right. So I think all of that, other players chose to hold out and not play in Quebec, and we know who we're talking about, but I always felt that to have the honor to be in a place and play where Jean Beliveau played and Guy Lafleur and Rocket Richard and spots like that, and you look at those players that were such great players, and Jacques Demers and Andre Boudrias were so good to me, and Maurice Filion, that it was an honor for me to be a Quebec Nordique. And the only regret I have is that the National League chose to not have a team there. And after they won the Cup, when they moved to Colorado, I felt that it would have been right, and it would have been a great move for any one of those players to take the Cup back to Quebec and have a parade and honor the fans that had supported them for so long.
Yeah,
absolutely right.
That would have been great.
And that's also the first time I've heard that suggestion. And it really, and we were talking about this a little bit on the way over, but it blows my mind that you can get somebody who, is playing a professional sport and gets drafted by a city and decides that they're not going to go there, as opposed to embracing, not just the opportunity, but like this magnificent this thing that so few people in life get to enjoy and experience,
Well, you can't stand and criticize them because nowadays it's not a game anymore; it's a business. And the fact is that a lot of people have a lot of people telling them how and where and what they should do. I, on the other hand, considered it a privilege. Further, I wasn't what others would call a star. So to that end, when you start to think about the opportunities that you have as a player, and you look at the opportunity to play in what really is one of the fountains of hockey in North America and Quebec and Montreal and in that province. And I just had so much respect. I lived in Russia as well for 3 years, and I assimilated there and tried to learn the language and get to the point where I was earning their respect. Mm-hmm. And that's why I find as an American, sometimes I find it difficult as we sit here and go through all of this tedious and really terrible humanity as we're experiencing now. Not making opinions about the president or any of the lawmakers, because it's not my place, and I really don't want to say anything because it doesn't. What they do is what they do.
Right,
but,
and it doesn't sell books.
I think if hockey really wants to be the global sport, we ought to take a few skates down to South America. They may like it. There are a lot of people down there. Maybe they'll like it. They like it in China.
Right.
And they certainly did well after World War II in Russia with hockey. And now look at the World Junior Tournament. You can't count on just the U.S. and Canada anymore. And as I said to Don Cherry once, you Canadians have done such a great job with the sport. You've made it so attractive that everybody wants to play. And everybody wants to be good.
Yeah, well, I mean, the problem, of course, is it's not just taking a couple of pairs of skates down there. How are you going to? Hockey's an expensive sport.
Yeah, no doubt about that, and that's something else that we need to address. In my recent induction in the Hall of Fame, I made mention at the closing of my speech that part of the rededication or the continuation of earning this honor was to help the sport not only stay affordable but safe, and as well to continue it in a manner that it still brings joy to people who put on skates. And I think that when you get to that prohibitive spot where you're starting to spend $180 for stick and $900 for a pair of skates, it starts to become greed, and it's not hockey anymore. And so to that end, I think that we need to really address this issue and get on the same page as well as we can.
And I think it would be interesting going into a country that's never experienced hockey before, and just to start it from the ground level, because you'd be starting the culture from a different way as well, like the culture of the game in that new country. I remember my uncle telling me a story. He went to Australia, and he walked into the local hockey arena. It was the only arena around, and there's a whole team of guys just standing on the ice, and they're standing in the middle of the ice, and he's going, what are they doing? So he walks onto the ice, and he sees that there's one guy reading a book to them, and the book is called How to Play Hockey.
Yeah, well, things have changed there now because in our summer, they play in the winter. They've asked me to go over and help with the officiating over there. Yep. And I think that, the same thing's happening in China. They have a KHL team now, and they have players that are playing. I look at what hockey, this is a theory of mine, but in 1972, when the Summit Series happened, and Paul Henderson and Espo and all those fellows did what they did, and Yakashev and Tretiak did what they did, it really started to take the mortar and the stone out of the whole wall that stood between us. So they called it an Iron Curtain. But I really feel that those players started to see what it was like over here, and it started the real decay of the totalitarian dictatorship. And then in the mid-'80s, all of a sudden, Kasatonov and Fetisov and Larionov and those great players are starting to play in the NHL. And I think that look at the way it's gone now. Yeah, we still have differences, but really that's more because of the language. It's the same thing that Western or English Canadians have with Quebec. They don't understand, they don't communicate. And I think that this is something that we can overcome. We look at a place like Finland and Sweden and go there. We think we're in North America so smart. You go there and those people speak 4 and 5 and 6 languages. I think that
I always feel at a disadvantage and like I miss an opportunity. Like I wish I would have paid a little more attention in a French class, grades 4 through 9, because now I'm paying for the privilege to learn a language or trying to download some language program.
I'm right with you, because the first time I went to Quebec, Jamie Hyslop was my roommate, and he said, "Let's order some chicken dinner." So we called it coq rôti. It's the yellow car with the red chicken on top. And I called and I used my best French, and I ordered 2 chicken dinners. It was 3 in the morning, and we had been out having some of that Canadian lager,
some libations.
And Molson, it is a Canadian game, right? So the fellow shows up at the door, and I open the door at the Chateau Frontenac, and the 2 chicken dinners are 12. And I said, "You see, at 3 in the morning with a few beers in you, and with a Boston accent, and dudes are so close."
And back when you were playing in the NHL with Quebec, I just had a question for you, because I was looking at your hockey fight record, your fight card, and I noticed
big shout out to dropthegloves.com.
Yeah, they log everyone's fight card, and I thought it was really interesting how many multiple fight games you had, where there was no less than 15 games in not just the NHL but other leagues as well. But I was wondering, when you played in Quebec, did you have anyone that was more of a primary fighter that was working with you, or were you by yourself, kind of like a lone gunman doing that?
Well, Wally Weir was as tough as they came, and Brackenberry was as tough as they came. But it seemed that maybe because of the fact that I was an American and I was playing for Quebec and I was from Boston, a lot of people don't realize at that time, if you looked across the league at the 3 Canadian teams in the East, the 3 tough guys on the teams were Paul Stewart from Boston, Chris Nyland from Boston, and Kurt Walker from Boston. And then you start to think about the other guys in the league, and you look at Paul Holmgren, and you look at Nick Fotiu, and you look at the Carlsons and the Hansons and all of these guys, and you start to think, why is that? Is it the water down there? Or is it something, But what it comes down to is that we were the minority.
Yeah. And
you were either a great player or you had to fight your way into the job. And so in many senses, we weren't too unlike Roland Kurtenbach or John Ferguson. We were guys that were buying space for ourselves with our fists.
That's interesting. And you mentioned, I think, did you mention Dave Hansen or one of these?
I fought them all. I fought those guys.
You fought almost for Slapshot fans of the movie. You fought pretty much.
I was in the movie.
You were in the movie, and you fought all the Hansen brothers.
I did. I had to. They were from Minnesota. I ended up marrying a girl from Minnesota and fighting with her too. So.
And you fought the one Hansen brother that didn't make it into the movie that they replaced with.
What a great honor he paid me. A few days before my induction into the U.S. Hall of Fame, Jack Carlson, who I have never spoken to, other than the night in Hartford when I fought him back to back.
What were you saying that night?
Well, not a lot. He said to me, after the first fight, he says, we have to go again. I said, it's your barn. I said, I'll be out in 3 minutes.
It's your barn.
And we went out, and we dropped the gloves again, and it was, toe-to-toe, and it was a good fight. But he called me, and I took it as such a great compliment from a guy that was a true tough guy, a true guy that played inside of the code. He wasn't a dirty guy. He just did what he did, and he called me and congratulated me, and I took that as a great sign of respect. And many people who are listening to this perhaps think that I was a violent guy. I wasn't. I was very, I think, calculating. I think I utilized the intelligence that I was given and understood and figured out what I had to do to get there. And looking at the Flyers in '73 and '4 and '5, I mean, I was at the rink that they practiced at every day at the University of Pennsylvania, going to an Ivy League school. My roommate in prep school is a congressman and a Rhodes Scholar and people don't know it, but I helped him with his homework every night.
Yeah, that's great. And sorry, John. I was looking also at the card, and I noticed back when you were in the AHL, you ran into a couple Philadelphia guys. They played in Philadelphia back then, but they ended up becoming Flyers. It was a pretty serious tandem, Jim Cunningham and Glenn Cochran, and I saw a couple multiple fight games. I was wondering how those ones went.
That was tough. In Maine, at the end of I was sent to Philadelphia Firebirds, which was an American League team owned by a fellow that owned Mrs. Paul's Fish Sticks.
Okay.
and the interesting part of that was that we went up to Maine one night at the end of the first period. My dad saw me in the runway. He said, "Watch yourself. They're gonna come after you." And I never got 3 feet onto the ice, and the whole team jumped me.
Oh wow!
I gave this. I got fined $850 by Jack Butterfield, which
whoa, that's a lot back then.
I'll conclude with that story in a second. But I fought Cunningham, Cochran, Bosniak, Linsman, Cunningham, Cochran, Bosniak, Linsman, and people say, "Well, you mentioned them already." I said, "No, but they came around again." So I got fined $850 for setting a record in the American League for so many penalty minutes. And Jack Butterfield, who was president, said to me, I appealed it, and he said, "You'll get this money back over my dead body." And I said, "Okay, that's fine." And later on, I went back and refereed in the American League. We became great friends. But when Jack did pass away, I went to his funeral, and they never had a check there for me.
Oh man,
it's like you had a one-sided line brawl.
That's it. And it was funny because the team that I was playing on and Beth Glynn was coaching, it was the farm team for the Colorado Rockies.
Okay.
And I went in the dressing room at the end of this fight, and I got my ass kicked, and I was bleeding, and there was a picture in Sports Illustrated about it. My nose was three or 4 degrees left of center. Anyway, I told those guys, I said, "Someday I'm going to play against all you, and you're going to regret it." And I went to Fort Worth the next year in the Central Hockey League. I grabbed about 3 or 4 of them in the warm-up and swatted them.
In the warm-up.
I couldn't get penalized then.
Perfect. And I'm looking here, and the one game that it stands out as a highlight for anyone that played in the NHL enforcer role. This one, the guys on hockeyfights.com like to talk about. You went against the Boston Bruins one night and ran into 4 of the toughest to ever play the game. Wayne Cashman, Terry O'Reilly, Stan Jonathan, and Al Secord all in one game?
Yeah, and the funny thing is I didn't know who Secord was. I was expecting Wensick, who I had fought in the American League in New Haven one night. But it's an aspect of doing my job. Robbie Ftork was our captain, Dean Mark Tardif, and Tuesday prior to this November 22nd, American Thanksgiving, in Quebec, Schmatzry and Ftork got his stick up and knocked out 6 or 7 teeth and cut him for 30, 40 stitches. So the Bruins vowed to get Ftork, and I had played with Robbie for 2 years in Cincinnati. Not only was my friend, he was my bread basket and ticket to the high life. And so I just in the warm up, Cashman speared me. But I stood in front of the Bruins dressing room before the game started in my street clothes, and I told Bobby Miller, "Go and tell those guys if they want a piece of dark, we can start right now." I just wanted to set the stage with them.
Yeah.
No, this was at 4:30, 5 o'clock, and I told them, I said, "You guys want Ftork, you're gonna have to go through me."
Nice.
And in the warm up, Cashman speared me, and we hacked each other a little bit with sticks. And then O'Reilly and Jonathan and Secord. And I just did a signing with Terry O'Reilly at Worcester Railers game with my book, which he's featured on the cover, and he wrote the foreword. And it's, to me, one of the ultimate aspects of an achievement in hockey for me, because I got one of the most recognizable and greatest competitors that I've ever seen to not only participate in the signing, but write the forward to my book, which is a sign of respect. I hope I earned it from him.
It sounds like it. I mean, look, to go against those 4 dudes in one game, that's pretty intense. And Terry O'Reilly is one of the greatest warriors to ever lace up. Both like as a player and a fighter, like that guy left it all on the ice. So I mean, that's a testament, I think, to what you contributed to the game as a player, and then obviously later on as a referee. I think you're very well respected. So that's awesome, man.
No, I appreciate it, and I just tell you that Anders Hedberg, once we were at a charity event, and he looked over at me and he says he remembered me, of course, from WHA, and I didn't get to play much against Winnipeg. I fought Kim Clarkson one night, and that was about the extent of my on-ice activity against Winnipeg Jets. But he said to me, "How many goals did you get in the NHL?" I said, 2. He says, "You've made a lot out of those 2. Took those babies a long way.
What does so you and Cashman are whacking at each other before the game even starts. What's the protocol to split that up? Like as a ref, if you see 2 guys pushing and shoving or taking swings and the game hasn't even started, how do you break it up? Does the game? It doesn't.
Well, they were going clockwise and we were going counterclockwise in our half and their half. And,
oh, gotcha. So you just go by and catch each other.
And I went by him and he speared me.
Oh.
So I just did a hard left and followed him down. And he turned the stick over. Well, I played 2-3 years in the minors, and I played with guys like Larry Mavity and other Teddy McCaskill and people like that. And I knew how to use a stick. Trust me. and the fact was, he says to me, "I'll cut your eyes out." I said, "What do you think this is, a salmon?" I said, "I'll stick it down your throat and take nothing of it." I said, "There's nobody here to break us up." And it was a little bit of the old-time hockey, but you got to understand something. They knew I was coming.
Right.
And I think that was part of his aspect of trying to challenge me. He was the captain, I think, that night. And, they had a good hockey team. They had Jean Rattel, and they had Cheevers and Gilles Robert, and they had a pretty good hockey team. So I'm not taking anything away from them. Milbury was playing defense for them, and Brad Park and other different guys. But the fact is that I wasn't going to back down from those guys.
No.
Listen, I was from Dorchester, which is one of the toughest sections of Boston. And, for me in 1958 as a 5-year-old to say I'm going to play in the National Hockey League, it took a certain amount of guts. And I wasn't backing down from those guys.
Yeah, for
Plus,
sure.
I grew up with those guys.
So
growing up in Dorchester, you say it's a tough area, and did you have some?
Christmas Eve, in 1962, my brother walked out of Dorchester Park. They had been skating, and a guy stabbed him for his hockey stick.
Oh my God!
Killed him.
in '62.
I mean, that's the type of neighborhood it is. It's a working class neighborhood, and it was tough. And,
right.
I never knew we weren't rich. I thought we were. We had a toilet and a half in our house. We thought we were rich.
All right, you little Billy badasses. This episode of Fight Stories is brought to you by Absolute Nature CBD. Listen, you know the deal. They're the best. Plug in the Goon Squad. Promo code to save 20% at checkout, like you've been doing. However, I am announcing the Fight Stories Christmas giveaway. The Sunshine Boys and the good people over at Absolute Nature CBD are giving away some CBD oil and CBD oil products over the course of the holidays, and this is what you got to do to enter to win. All you have to do is retweet or share on Facebook an episode of Fight Stories, tag Absolute Nature CBD, tag me and Tyler, the Sunshine Boys, and tag Fight Stories, and then put in, this is probably the most important part, hashtag Fight Stories Christmas giveaway, and you can win one of their products that'll enter you in a chance to win either the oil, the salve, or the soft gels. The person who shares the most between now and December 24th will get all three. We'll get the Absolute Nature CBD Super Pack. It's got to be like a $250 value, something like that. I don't know. Maybe it's $200. Listen, it's free and it's great. Can't get no better than that.
And are there any particular fights outside the rink growing up that kind of molded you, that you felt that you were able to take that experience?
Yeah, you're walking around with your
ice?
back up.
Oh yeah, there was a kid I fought once, Nicky Fish. He was a tough kid and rugged, and he and I went at it, and I fought a lot of different guys, but see, fights then, you're best of friends and you fight, and then 20 minutes later you're off having a popsicle. So it wasn't like you hated each other. But,
Not even
but
a
I
beer.
fought this Nicky
A fucking
Pearson who was in
popsicle.
front of a convent, and the nuns came out to watch, and all the traffic stopped. And I looked over, and there's my mother. She's holding my lunchbox and my coat. So the fight's over, and one lady, Mrs. Costello, with the brawl. Oh no, there's a terrible brawl, and Paul said, "Get down here, Mr. Stewart." Oh, they hit each other. The fight's over. And I'm walking back to the house with my mother, and I catch up to her, and I say, it's sort of embarrassing you showing up to the fight. She said, "I just wanted to make sure no one stole your coat."
You think we're rich, but we're not.
Exactly.
That's awesome. And so,
But I mean, there's a certain something too about the time we grew up in. I mean, we grew up on war movies and John Wayne and things like that. And you'd go to the Oriental Theater. You had 25 cents, and you could see two films for a quarter, and the drink was syrup and soda water out of the cup, and
Right.
you get a popcorn for 10 cents. So you pretty well, live your life. And, we skated on ponds, and we did everything that any other of the kids would have done out in Saskatoon or
So,
in Toronto or
50,
anywhere else.
you were born 53, right? You said that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just curious.
I was born the
did
day
you
Stalin died. I'm not sure. Maybe that had something to do with it.
were there still like some of the vestiges of World War II? Like, could you still feel that? Were there like kids you knew growing up whose like dad died in the war? Like, were families
for
still
sure.
like
Listen, if you met me right now, you'd see I got my dad's dog tags on. On every house on my street had a Marine, veteran, or a Navy or an Army guy. And
Right.
the guy around the corner that coached football with my dad at English High, he was a tail gunner on a B-17, got shot down, spent 2 years in prison camp. So, yeah, we and there were still guys in the reserves.
I mean, so
this is like
that's got to
late
breed
50s, early
toughness.
60s.
That's got to breed toughness and like gratitude,
Yeah, I mean, once a Marine, always a Marine.
Right.
And, my father would say to me, I would get cut or get hurt or get knocked down, and say, "Get up." And we used to box, and we played football, and we did everything. We there was a bridge down where we lived, and we used to, hand over hand, go across the bridge underneath over the river, and, it was all tests of courage and stuff like that. So it was being a kid.
Yeah.
And so you go into the NHL. You put your career. As it's winding down. What is it that helps you decide to transition into the referee side of things? Was there ever
Paying the mortgage?
Well, no, I was going through the same issues that a lot of guys go through. That we remembered the roar and we missed it. We used to be somebody that people loved. We missed all the attention. We missed certainly the money. And the fact is that because my family had been involved in sports their whole lives, that I being a policeman and being a car salesman and doing radio talk shows and things like that just didn't stimulate me to the point that I wanted to stay at it. And I found myself again going back to what my family had done. My grandfather had refereed in the NHL. My dad was a collegiate referee, worked college world championships in 3 sports, football, hockey, baseball, and at the highest level collegiately. And I started refereeing to put money in my pocket, $5 a game, working youth hockey and helping the kids over the boards. And the fellas that were running the officiating in Massachusetts, they were the ones that told me I was wasting my time doing amateur stuff, that I should go back to the pros. And with Scotty Morrison and John McCauley gave me my shot. God rest John McCauley's soul. And I found myself again. I found my purpose, and I found out where I was the happiest. It's not always where you make the most money or you have the greatest success. It's where you're the happiest. And the people that I love the most and the people that I respect are people in rinks. And when I'm in rinks, I'm happy. So why not stay there? That's what I do. Now, other things I do, construction. I built 5 hockey rinks.
Oh,
wow.
I work commercial roofing, and I advise and I run hockey officiating for about 5 leagues right now, and I did work in Russia for 3 years. I'm just happy being around the sport. It gives me purpose and gives me identity, and it gives me a source of pride.
God, I would love to talk to you about the commercial aspect of building the rinks, but I feel like that's another podcast.
Well, let me put it this way to you. The fact is that a lot of the notions and ideas about how to build a rink are those that I've acquired from watching people and talking to fellas like Dan Craig, who's, the guru of hockey for the NHL. But I grew up as a 7-year-old with a wooden paddle with holes in it, stirring the brine tank at the Boston Arena where the Bruins played back in the 20s.
Wow.
And I had a key, like Rudy had a key to the Notre Dame football stadium. I had a key to the arena. I used to go in there on snow days and skate by myself.
When you were 7, wow, the magnitude of that must have been incredible for a 7-year-old kid.
Oh, no doubt about it. And I drove one of the original 10 Zambonis when I was 12. And I sharpened skates, and I helped put the nets on, and I mixed the oil and the antifreeze to pour in the hole so that the hole would plug up. But I learned how to paint the lines, and I sold board advertising. I did everything. And you know what? The people I respected the most, especially my dad and my grandfather, we were at home in the rinks.
Yeah.
That's great. And as you get into the NHL refereeing, as you get to that level, it wasn't too far away from your playing career. Did you run into guys that you played that were still
that's a good question.
played against or fought while you were refereeing?
Oh, yeah.
Like, Paul, you hypocrite son of a bitch.
No, but I played against Gretzky. His first game in the WHA was in Dayton.
Cool.
He was playing for Indy, and I was playing for Cincinnati, and Whitey Stapleton introduced us. And it's ironic because just a few days before I was inducted in the Hall of Fame, Wayne called me, and it was such an honor. But he comes from such a fine family. His mom and dad were such nice people. And I really have great respect. Mark Messier was my teammate in Cincinnati.
Nice.
Mike Gartner was my teammate. And, I ran up against a lot of guys that I was on the ice with or against. And, and then behind the bench, Pat Quinn and Jack McElhargy and other. I fought Jack McElhargy. He cut me open for like 32 stitches in Philly, and
the Wolfman.
He'd be behind the bench in Vancouver. They'd be barking, and I'd lean over the board and say, "Jack, I haven't forgotten Philly."
That's
and they would
funny.
chuckle, But Pat Quinn threw a piece of gum at Driscoll one night, and I was in Montreal watching it on TV. And 2 nights later, I'm in Buffalo, and then Saturday I'm in Toronto, and they find Quinn, God rest his soul, he's a good guy. And so on the way to walking from Eaton Center Merritt to the Maple Leaf Gardens, I bought at Max, I bought 10 packs of gum. And after the anthem, Quinn used to come out of the dressing room. He never stood behind the bench during the anthem. And Ricky Lee was assistant coach. So I skate over. I says, "Where's Pat?" "Oh, he's coming. What do you want?" I said, "Here, these are for him." And I put the 10 packs of gum on the bench. He says, "What's those for?" I said, "Tell him I don't want him to run out of ammunition." So I had a different way of handling those guys.
Yeah.
I never threw a coach out in 20 years. I only gave 4 bench minors. 3 of them were to guys who were teammates of mine.
Yep.
And the other was to Brian Murray, who had a lisp. Every time he said Paul, he spit him in the face.
Well, that's so funny.
So and God rest his soul, he was a good guy. I reached out to him when he was ill, and Pat Burns the same. The intensity of the interaction only was a demonstration of the passion that we had.
Yeah.
Right.
And they were as steadfast in that they were right as much as I was steadfast in that I was right.
But at the same
one thing that a lot of people wonder about, how do you last a long time as a referee in the NHL? You have to have acceptability.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
I had that.
Because you're talking about, everybody's very passionate, but you don't really ever see a ref getting too passionate. They kind of got to sit there and take it. They're almost like a judge. You know, you're sitting there and you're taking this coach, you know, screaming in your face and he's lisping and spitting. But I've never seen a referee like even scream back. It's just like
I used to give it right back to them. one night in Winnipeg, Dan Maloney was coaching, and the glass was low, and they had just started to put the third tier up in the old Winnipeg arena, and the glass was low, and I jumped up right by the bench and held onto the glass. And some fan in the first row leaned over and punched me right square in the face. And so I fell off the glass, and I'm sitting on my ass on the ice. And I pointed at the guy, blew the whistle, and I stopped the game.
Yeah.
Maloney's yelling at me, "What are you stopping the game for?" They must have been on a breakaway. I said, "That guy punched me." He said, "Let's sign him."
Oh, that's great.
So, you gotta have the passion, but you gotta have a sense of humor. And Burns one night, he yelled at me. He said, "You screw the Bruins to prove you're fair." Now that's the most idiotic, illogical statement I've ever heard. So I stopped the game.
Yeah.
He and I were screaming at each other back and forth. I said, "By the way," at the end of this back and forth, Axelson started, he wanted to chime in, and I said, hey, you, when I want to talk to the peanut gallery, I'll talk to you. Otherwise, I'm talking to the big cheese. I said, "Hey, you tell your wife she picked out a beautiful tie tonight." So I skated away. And Burns, I know what he was doing. He was trying to get a rise out of me to get the team going.
Yeah.
So he winks at me. So Bork skates off the bench at the end of the period. He goes, "I've never seen two guys yell at each other like that before." He said, "You're not going to take it out on us." I said, "Why would I do that?"
Right.
I said, "You're the captain of this team." I said, "You're going to control that dressing room, and you're going to tell that entire team that if I read about this or hear about this," I said, "tomorrow night in Buffalo, you will not be getting power plays. You'll be killing penalties."
Yeah.
Because I'm wrestling. So after the game's over, not a word, nothing in the paper the next day. But after the game was over, Burns was on the press conference, and I can see it in my dressing room. And one of the reporters said, right in the middle of the second period, Paul Stewart stopped the game for no reason, and you and he got into it and were screaming at each other. What was that all about? And Burns said, "I think Paul Stewart's one of the best referees in the National Hockey League." I don't think he was having his best period that day. So, that's okay. It was opinion. So the next night I skated around in Buffalo before the anthem, and I skate by Burns. I said, "Hey, another nice tie."
And
You gotta have a little
go ahead.
joy in you, a little mirth, a little. Don't take yourself too seriously.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, the game's changed. They took the names off the sweaters. We're referees now are all gray. They don't have that. Wes McCauley has personality, but the rest of the fellas, they are what they are.
Yeah, well, you get into like being on the ice. It's like a front row seat. You always see they do sometimes the mic'd up NHL players. You have like the all access to that. Who is the greatest trash talker that you ever heard on the ice?
Oh, or the worst, if that's how you look at it.
Rob Ray.
Robbie Ray.
Jesus, and sometimes he didn't make any sense. It's sort of funny. But
listen, as a comic, sometimes you just got to let it all. You just got to let it all hang out.
Yeah. But I mean, there wasn't too much. There was the usual questioning their courage or their sexual preference or their physical equipment. But other than that,
here's a question: Was there anybody that you gave a little extra leeway? Like any tough guys out there, you gave a little extra leeway just because you liked them? You gave Probert a little extra. Yeah, nice.
I'll tell you why.
Like anybody ever needed it. It's not Probert, but
Chicago one night in a playoff game.
Yeah.
And they're playing Minnesota, and there's no love loss. It's the opening game, and he lines up against Basil McRae, and I drop the puck, and I turn, and those two guys have dropped the gloves, and they're going. One punch from one punch from the other, one punch from McRae, and Probert hit him with a haymaker. I mean, a straight shot, and hit him so hard he spun him. And as he did, he McRae broke his leg.
Oh shit.
And Probert had his hands cocked, ready to hit him another one. And he held him up, waved to the bench, called the trainer out, held him. And then when the trainer got there, he let him go. And I turned and I said to Probert, go to the box, but I'm going to tell you got all my respect.
Yeah, that's classy.
Yeah.
That's a classy move.
I think they used to be teammates,
I had a lot
too.
of time for Probert.
Uh-huh.
He wasn't, he played hard, and he ran through goaltenders and all the things he did, which is fine. But I felt, it's just one of those things that you don't see very often.
Oh, yeah.
And
I mean,
I liked him.
Mm-hmm.
you don't go from, nailing the guy in the face to holding him up like Gone with the Wind.
Well, for a guy who beat up so many guys in the league, he won so many fights against guys. You very rarely hear someone say, "I did not like Bob Probert. I don't like Bob Probert." So many people had great interactions with him and experiences, despite all of his, off
beatings
and
off ice issues that clouded a little bit of his situation. I mean,
listen, everybody's got off ice issues,
of course.
And the fact is, like Eddie the Eagle one night, he begged the cop to drive him home and give him. I'll give you $10,000 or whatever he said. So I'm
$1 billion
the next night. Yeah, he said that I'm reffing the next night in Dallas, and there was a play and there was a stoppage, and he's sweeping the snow away. I leaned on the net. I said, "Hey Ed, how's it going?" "Yeah, good." I said, "Listen, I rented a nice car tonight, so if you need a ride home, I'll do it for $500." So you gotta have some enjoyment to this. It's a game.
Yeah,
the fact is that you wanna let these guys play. And I had my runs in with different players like Eisenman, and I just didn't get along at all. But we eventually brokered a deal through Scotty that he stayed away from me, and I didn't talk to him. That was it.
Well, that's interesting to have, that type of relationship with someone that, I don't know, he's, pretty revered captain, but he didn't like your style and you didn't like it.
No, he didn't like my style, and he didn't like the fact that I dug my heels in and I wasn't backing away from him.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is that I didn't like the way he talked to some of the lines.
Oh, okay.
I thought he talked down to the guys. What he said to me didn't bother me. I've been called everything in the book.
Yeah.
But as I said to a couple guys, "You don't like me very much." I said, "That's okay." I said, "You think you want to kick my ass?" I said, "Well, I'll meet you anywhere you want to go. Doesn't matter to me."
we take off the uniforms.
I told a famous guy one night, he's in the Hockey Hall of Fame. He played for the Bruins. And he said something to me. I turned, I said to him, "You got all these people fooled." I said, "They think you're fast. I think you're fast when the numbers are big."
Yeah.
And he didn't like that. He says, "I got to kick your ass." I said, "I'll tell you what, I'll meet you in Charlestown." Nobody there.
Yeah.
We'll split a cab.
You and I we'll just do it up. There'll be nobody to stop it.
Yeah.
I said, and we'll go from there. And different guys along the way, they wanted to challenge me, and they felt that they could get behind the fact that they were players and challenge me. And the fact is that I wasn't going to fight them, but if I had to, I could have.
Right. And you being a previous player, it didn't impress you so much.
Once in Moncton, I picked Claude Lemieux. Got into a fight one night in Moncton, when he was playing for Sherbrooke, and the linesman had a broken arm or a broken wrist. He was still in a cast, and he got pinned underneath, and he was screaming, yelling. And I speak French, and I said to Lemieux, "Arrête, maintenant, stop." The linesman's in trouble. And he turned around and he told me to, kiss my ass. And I grabbed him by the hair and the crotch, and I threw him over the boards. He was 250 pounds.
Claude Lemieux.
I did. I picked him right up and I threw him right over the boards. And people say, "How'd you do that?" I said, "I was strong. I was strong. And I wasn't taking any crap. And if I got mad, I could handle it."
Oh, yeah.
And, so I ended up in a meeting in Montreal, and they said I was anti-French, this and that. And I said to Serge Savard, "That's a bunch of crap." I said, "That's Pierre Kramer talking." I said, "That's not you." And they dropped it. So it is what it is. It's all, nobody likes referees. And I tell people all the time, it's not that they didn't like me, it's they didn't like the polyester sweater.
Yeah. You got those black and white stripes. They don't.
They can only suit you a little more stylishly.
Yeah. Oh wow,
That's right.
that's amazing.
Right.
Is there any? I guess. What was I going to ask? Is there any like referee that you felt like over policed the game? You know what I mean? Like wouldn't put the whistle away. That like it kind of it annoyed you as from the professional perspective.
Well, you work with a lot of young guys, and they want to set the high water mark for themselves. And
Right.
I worked with a kid. He's still working now, so I'm not going to mention his name. But
That's fair.
I thought he was a little over officious. So one night in Tampa, Tortorella was coaching, and this guy was sort of new. And Anderchuk, Florida was playing Tampa, and it was in Tampa, and Anderchuk was behind the net, and he pulled the legs of that Ole Jokinen, but Jokinen, as he's falling, made a 100-foot path up to the red line, and everybody's concentrating on the play way up high.
Yeah.
And Anderchuk and I are skating up ice. We're behind the play. All of a sudden, there's a change of possession, and the whistle goes. And the front referee, this young kid, and he's still working. He made this call, and Tortorella and Anderchuk and I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And we're like, So anyway, it was close to the end of the period. Tortorella was screaming and yelling. I put my hand up and I said, "Hey, just John, I'll relax. I'll come see you." So the period's over, and the two linesmen and the other referee go off the ice. I said to Tortorella, "Give me a copy of that." So I stood actually on the bench and waited for the copy of this tape. and I skated into the dressing room, and I said, "Jesus." They said, "Where were you?" I said, "I had to go see the trainer for Tampa." I said, "There's something wrong." I said, "Take a look at my eye. Do you see my contact? Is my contact lens in my eye?" and this other referee stands up. He says, "Yeah, it is." I said, "Oh, thank God, because I missed that trip that was 5 feet in front of me." Thank God you saw it from 150 feet away.
Yeah.
I said, "Here, look at that thing." I said, "That's a joke, a disgrace, and you know what? You don't need me for the third period, so I just pulled my gun. You're all on your own. Have a nice night." Oh, don't be like that. Don't be like that. I turned and I said to him, "You don't need me. You're like a PT boat. You're just cruising all over. You don't need anybody. You're on fast."
Yeah.
So you don't trust me. You don't trust the linesman, and
You don't trust me. You don't trust.
You got it all figured out.
Yeah.
So you go out there by yourself and get it done. So I took my skates off,
Oh wow.
and I just pretended I wasn't going out. And they went out, and they started the period. I put my skates back on and went out like a minute into the third period.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And when he said to me, "Are you all right?" I turned and I said to him, "Yeah, and you got 19 minutes to figure it out." I said, "If you ever do that again," I said, "I'm going to run this elbow right through your mouth."
Oh shit.
Oh God, a ref fight would have been the most legendary fight of all the NHL.
I just told him, I said, other guys will sit there and talk about you behind your back. I'm telling you right to your face, that was a horseshit call. And
Yeah.
I'm not taking it. And I'm going to tell you right now, just don't do that again.
Yeah.
I said, because and here's the tape. Go look at it. And if I'm wrong, I said, I'll buy you dinner because you're going away tomorrow, and then I'll see you next week. But I'll tell you what, I said, don't ever do that again to me.
Yeah.
I said, that's crap.
It had to be
End of story.
It had to be tough though when they transitioned into the two referee system because you're used to just running the show by yourself, and then all of a sudden now it's it really depends on.
Most of us people don't realize most of us grew up in a two referee system, and we all worked amateur hockey in two referees, so we had to learn how to get along with each other.
Oh, that's
the only thing was that doing two referees, two linesmen was we didn't have to worry about icings, offsides, dropping pucks. So it wasn't that hard of a transition, and a lot of people aren't the historians of hockey that I've been.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather refereed in the National League in the 30s, and it was two referees, one linesman.
Oh, interesting. That's very interesting. And I guess the other question I want to ask you is having that front row seat that not many people had. What's the best fight that you ever saw on the ice as a referee?
Yeah, but it wasn't in the NHL.
All right.
It was in the Western Junior team. It was Saskatoon. And Saskatoon was playing in a playoff game, and Wild Bill Hunter was at the game. I'll never forget it. He owned Edmonton when I was there.
Yeah.
And he was a good fella. And I was refereeing, and Shane Churla fought Wendel Clark in Saskatoon in the old rink. And when the fight was over, and they were killing each other, and it was unbelievable, no holds barred. It was almost like Jack Carlson and me. It was like straight punch for punch. And they're both big kids.
Mm-hmm.
And the place was going crazy. And then the linesman went to break it up, and I pulled them both out of the way. I said, leave them alone.
Yeah.
I'll take care of this. Get away. And so I just said to those guys, I said, when you get tired, let me know.
Oh, wow.
And they finished, and they pulled into each other. And they looked each other in the eye, and there was no mushing faces and biting or catcalling or anything like that.
Right, they're just
I said, okay, you guys, I'm going to skate between you. Let's skate to the box. And we're skating from like the middle of the one end zone to the penalty box. And as we got about 20 feet from the penalty box, I took each one of them, I took their hands and raised them up over their heads.
Oh, that's great.
Awesome. These
That's
young kids.
so
And the
cool.
the place went nuts. But
Yeah.
you got to understand, I mean, that was the game then.
Yeah.
Things have changed.
But that's
Yeah.
in a tough Western Hockey League, and that's Shane Churla became a great NHL enforcer, and Wendel Clark, obviously one of the toughest pound for pound guys to ever play for the Toronto Maple Leafs and many other teams. But that story,
Quebec. Played for
he
Quebec.
did play for Quebec.
Yeah.
He did, yeah.
And the wingers.
And
Don't,
that was a
don't forget
heartbreak.
Les Nordiques.
Yeah, yeah. It hurt my heart. I cried when he got traded when I was a kid. But,
What do you think about that, Dorchester?
yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
But that fight in particular, I had heard about this fight, but there's no video because it's back in the early '80s, and it was the Western Hockey League, so it's not as the NHL. Most of the games are filmed, but that fight doesn't exist on video. So I've only heard about it through secondhand accounts, but to hear it from firsthand, the referee that's there, that's going to be a very popular soundbite for this podcast for the people that listen.
Yeah.
They talk about
For the hockeyfights.com.
the hockey fight boards. They talk about that fight every now and again. It comes up as like the holy grail of fights. That's one that doesn't exist.
Wow.
But if they could have that on video, they would like to see that particular one. So thank you for sharing that with us. That's amazing.
No, I think it was one of the better fights that I ever saw, and I thought it was two guys that were equal in their ability, and they were both tough, and they did this thing, and then they both went to the box and sat down, and there was nothing past the fight. They went out and played the hockey the rest of the game, and I just tell you that as I say, Wild Bill Hunter was there, and he was a great gentleman of the game and quite a colorful guy. He came down after, of course he knew me, and he came down and he said, that was fantastic, that was great, this is what it's all about. I said to him, I'm sure the people here in Saskatoon, other than waiting for the grain silos to open, this was probably the best thing that ever happened.
Just very quickly, because we are running long. Just your opinion as a former enforcer and now a ref, and by all means an ambassador to the game. Your opinion of how the game is shaping up and where it's headed as far as fighting is concerned.
Well, I don't think that a lot of factors are involved anymore that would precipitate the fights, such as the back-to-back games. There's not the friction anymore. There's not the
rivalries
aspect of rivalry, but really the opportunity to dislike someone. And someone, when Boston played Montreal and it was Milt Schmidt playing against the Rocket, I mean, they just didn't like each other. And it was the same thing that the Rangers had with the Islanders and Philadelphia had with everybody. And so you just look at the fact that those things have changed. Plus, you look at the fact that the game has changed because everybody's got an agent now, and the agents are telling the players, you're not going to get more money unless you get more points. So you can't get points when you're in the penalty box. And so you don't see guys like Sean Thornton really prospering anymore. You see wise guys like Marchand doing their thing. If he ever licked my face, I'd have bitten his tongue right off. I'm telling you.
The second person to mention Marchand.
Yeah, if he ever licked
No, I'm just telling you. I mean, I don't take anything away from his hockey abilities.
No, for sure.
but he reminds you of Theo Fleury in a lot of ways. He's got a lot of great abilities, and he scores, interesting
timely
goals and exciting things. But all the rest of it is hocus pocus. It's not hockey.
Yeah.
And I think you got to have a professional attitude and a respect for the game, and I think that's missing.
Did you ever have any? Sorry, did you ever have any issues with like a Sean Avery at the time? Because like he was,
I thought he was an idiot. I still think he's an idiot, and I think my wife liked him because he's got a nice body, but the rest of it, But the fact is, saying stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
He was in the dressing room, and I was sitting next to him, and he said what he said about that guy's wife.
Yeah,
I'd have popped him. We used to police ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact is that. That type of behavior is not what hockey people should be about. I look at a guy like that guy, and then I look at a guy like Wayne Gretzky or Gordie Howe. And I just tell you that, it's one of the reasons why I had problems with, a few particular players that
a couple dickheads
played in Philadelphia or other different spots. I just thought that we didn't get along because I just thought that they thought they were bigger than the game.
Right.
Yeah, there's an element of decorum that the truly professional guys bring to the table.
My litmus test is would Jean Beliveau do that? And I don't think so. And I had the opportunity to play and know people like Frank Mahavlich and Tretiak. Tretiak is the minister of sport, minister of hockey in Russia.
Yeah.
And he talks to me like I scored 1,000 goals. And I just think that the respect that we need to have for one another, and that type of stuff that Avery did and wrote, it was hocus pocus. And the fact is that, like, if you walk by me and said something, I'd pop in like a thing does another. I'd let him find out what Dorchester was all about.
Well, I think also, you guys come from a different era where you weren't growing up and playing. You were growing up and playing, and you wanted to play the game because you loved hockey, and of course the fame and everything else. But there weren't $10 million contracts. Kids weren't being treated like gods as 13 and 14-year-olds because they were top prospects.
I watched the way that BU went out and played the game, and Jack Kelly's teams, and Jordan and Hines, and Hines played for Harvard, and Jordan and Sterling and Davenport, and those great teams that they had, and David Poyle playing for Northeastern. Those were the guys that inspired me to play college hockey.
Right.
And when I got to the pros, I watched. When I was in Philadelphia as a college student watching the Flyers practice every day, I kept looking at him and saying, I'm as big as that guy. I can skate as well as that guy. All of a sudden, I started to believe I could do it. And then I had guys like Barry Ashby, God rest his soul, told me, he said, you're going to make it. He said, you got the heart. And you know what? That's something that scouts the world round can't find. They don't know. They can't find a meter to measure heart. I made it on heart and persistence and courage.
It transcends
and I made it because
the analytics.
I wasn't giving up. And when they told me I had cancer and I had 6 months to live, I told them, I said, you don't know me. I'm not leaving.
Yeah.
Not yet. And I'll tell you one thing. The only part of me that's out of hockey, my knees and my legs and my back, you know what? My heart's still there. My mind's still there. So I'm still part of hockey. And it's a great sport. And when Gary Bettman says it's our game, you know what? He's done a great job, and I give him credit for growing the game. Look at Las Vegas; it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And now I see kids playing in the National Hockey League from New Jersey. Who the hell ever would have thought that?
Never mind that, Austin Matthews.
Yeah, but
who would have thought somebody from Arizona would be playing in the league?
Yeah.
Exactly. See, and Gomez playing for Jersey.
Yeah.
We're in New Jersey right now.
We probably could help him.
Yeah.
But, give Shiro a little time. He'll get it going. He's smart.
Yeah.
He's got the good bloodlines, and
nice.
good Tommy Fitzgerald. He's got lots of good guys there, so
Yeah.
he'll be fun.
Paul, thank you so much for your time today, man. I know you said a half an hour, but I knew we'd get you cooking longer as soon as we got you talking.
Yeah, I know the worst part is that usually I get going this far, and usually there's popcorn and beer involved, but you guys didn't buy that, so I got sucked in.
No, you're gonna have to send you a package.
Yeah. Tell you what, Paul, when we'll run into you down the road here, we'll be buying you a beer. We really appreciate you doing the podcast. It's absolutely an honor. You're a staple as a referee staple of our childhood experience, watching the NHL growing up, and everything that you've accomplished. And obviously, your battle with cancer is inspiring. To what you just said, like our listeners are going to be so intrigued by your story, and it really is a privilege to have you on. So
and once again,
they can get that book. You want to go, and then they can find out about the Magical Christmas for Paul Stewart, the children's book.
Nice.
That Matthew Sherman wrote after he heard my story, and I think that people don't maybe understand, but maybe they'll get a little bit after they hear this. That I don't believe in luck, but I was the luckiest guy in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I got to achieve my dreams.
It's an inspirational story, and I really do hope that our listeners do go check out the book. And it's youwannago.com. That's correct, right?
That's right. And I've already been approached. There's going to be a movie.
Oh, wow! Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah. So
Paul, can I play you in the movie?
Yeah, you can. You'll have to have a lobotomy.
You guys heard it here.
John's had his nose broken 5 times.
Yeah, just 5, Paul. I got a little catching up to do.
You got 20 to go.
Awesome. Well,
doctors loved me because I was like a house payment for them.
Yeah, I was about to say, you'd walk in the door, they go, cha-ching.
Here comes the cash cow. Awesome.
Funny.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Paul.
Stewart, everyone.
Okay.
YouWannaGo.com, and the book is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, but YaWannaGo, YaWannaGo.com. Sounds like you're from Dorchester. And check it out. Make sure you get the book, and check them out on YouTube. There's a couple scraps up there.
Oh, yeah.
And
YouWannaGo.com. CALM. Com is how you spell that.
You can see, people don't remember the fight I had with Gordy Lane in the island. That was a good one.
Yeah,
Billy Smith gave me a slash. I turned around, whacked him, and all of a sudden Gordy Lane hits me. I hit him like 3-4 times, and boom, down he goes. And it was sort of because later on I'm wrestling in the American League. He was coaching Springfield, so it was sort of an interesting dynamic there.
Hilarious. Well, there you have it. Again, thanks so much, Paul. Everyone, Paul Stewart. Thanks again for doing the podcast, and that's another episode of Fight Stories. And guys, you know where to get us, and don't forget to subscribe on patreon.com/fight stories for all the bonus features and all the fun.
All the footage, baby. And you can get the live video of this episode.
Very good. Send me the link. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thanks, Paul. You have a great one, man.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care.